Sekou Smith, John Schumann, the Hang Time Podcast. Instant analysis here on the floor at Quicken Loans Arena. The Golden State Warriors walked the Cavs down in Game 3, rally for a 110-102 victory to take a 3-0 lead in this series. Kevin Durant, John Schumann, Kevin Durant.
He did it again.
He's a savage. Unreal. I mean, he did it without the Splash Brothers having anything close to a Splash Brothers kind of night. He outplayed LeBron James again on this floor, in this space, in that time. He's making everybody reconsider now who's going to be the MVP of this series. I'm serious. You almost have to reconsider that vote that you were going to give to Steph, who really struggled tonight. One for 14 until the end when he made a couple shots. But this was Kevin Durant's night again.
I'll put off the MVP thoughts until at least the fourth quarter of Game 4. Curry 3 for 16, his worst shooting night of his postseason career. And 1 for 10 from 3. He had a big one late.
Huge, yes, huge.
But Durant, 43 points. I mean, he basically carried this team. It was almost like he was LeBron carrying the Cavs. 43 points, 13 rebounds, 7 assists. He was 5 for 6 from mid-range, 6 for 9 from threes. The 6 threes are a career postseason high for him.
Wow.
So that's 11 for 15 from outside the paint. His teammates from outside the paint, 4 for 22.
It was shocking. I didn't even realize how poorly the rest of those guys were shooting it until late when I looked and saw Steph was 1 for 14. But when you got a guy playing as well as Durant did tonight, he literally – and this is funny. People are complaining about him playing this way in the conference finals. You know, when they're ISO and he's playing like this against Houston, this is the same thing he was doing against them. But when you're knocking down shots at that clip, it's hard to complain about. It's hard to bellyache about a guy when he makes shots like that in these moments.
I still feel like he was a little bit more decisive. I think he was quick to get into his rhythm, into his shot more than he was. I keep coming back to it in fourth quarter of Game 1 where things got really stagnant. I mean, Klay Thompson had a pretty quiet night. Andre Iguodala, I think, came in and made an impact, but was afraid to shoot.
He was laboring on that leg too.
Yeah, and just afraid to shoot from the outside. I mean, he was left open several times and was quick to pass.
But made some great plays late.
True. Like he was a plus 14 too.
The dunk he made, the dunk he had. I thought his biggest play of the night was the steal on the baseline of Kevin Love.
Yep.
That was humongous. I mean, just everything that you would need from him late in the game that you didn't have previously, you got. Yeah.
I'm just saying, offensively, all their other perimeter players either shot poorly or didn't shoot at all.
Yeah.
And Durant picked up the slack.
Another guy I want to make sure we highlight and don't forget about the plays he made. Draymond Green. I can't tell you how many times he sacrificed, taking a layup or throwing up a floater or a shot at the rim to get an alley-oop to Bell or to JaVale or get an opportunity for somebody else to get a shot.
He was great as the sort of outlet on Curry pick and rolls with one of the other bigs. They'd run a pick and roll, start first possession of the game. They ran a pick and roll with McGee, or one of the first possessions. And instead of Curry trying to make the play himself, Draymond flashed to the ball, caught the pass, and then he's the one who hit the roll man with the lob. He did that a handful of times in this game. A terrific playmaker, obviously. And again, there was a lot of the Warriors taking advantage of Cavs' mistakes defensively, whether it be a pin down screen for one of their shooters and two guys going with the shooter and the guy who set the screen now all alone for a layup underneath. Botched switches like that. J.R. Smith unable to contain ball handler one-on-one. We just saw a lot more defensive mistakes from the Cavs that the Warriors continue to take advantage of.
So many of Cleveland's flaws unmasked and exposed in this series. And then you look and go, well, they've been so close, or they had a lead early tonight, playing with the energy, vibing off the building, with the crowd into it. But then you look up at halftime and Durant, he's got 24. So he's got him in the game strictly because of how well he shot it. I mean, they could have been blown off this court.
Yeah,
if he doesn't do what he does.
First quarter, he kept them in the game. Fourth quarter, he won the game, basically.
Yeah. Do we have to reevaluate as well? There's a lot of chatter. Durant's not playing. He's not as sharp as he was last year. In his first season with the Warriors. Might need to pump the brakes on that a little bit, no? I mean, he's been good. He hasn't been galactic like he was last year. I mean, they were 16-1. They mowed everybody down. I mean, it's been a bit more of some heavy lifting. But, I mean, he's been really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think you point to a couple things this year where, their defense just wasn't as sharp, obviously, in the regular season. I think the injuries hurt them in the early rounds of the playoffs. Curry, obviously, Curry injury, obviously, early. The Iguodala injury, last 4 games of the Houston series, and then, obviously, the first 2 games of this one. Where they haven't really been at peak Warriors form. Very much. I think we saw it in Game 2 for the most part.
Yeah.
But they obviously haven't hit their peak and sustained that level for as long as they did a year ago. As
you're watching them, I always use that phrase. It's a track phrase. You walk somebody down. It's like if you're running the quarter mile and you're in third place, and then you hit the last 100 meters and you catch whoever's in the lead, you walk them down. This felt like that. When we got in the third quarter, I thought, all right, they've walked them down. Cleveland battled back. I mean, they fought back. And, they didn't buckle like, they could have collapsed in the third quarter. They fought back, but they just didn't have enough. I mean, is that more about the Warriors and what they do, or more about Cleveland and what they don't do?
I think it's both. I mean, let's make it clear the Cavs are not very good for a finals team. Their cumulative playoff point differential now is minus 15, which means over the course of these playoffs they've been outscored by 15 points. That tells you that they're not that great.
By the way, that was Charles Barkley yelling in the background. For anybody who want to know, he's yelling at Jared Greenberg. We got a little bit of everybody in the NBA Digital / Turner Sports family down here doing business after this game. So we're not going to apologize for it. Just want to make sure we let you know who it was.
But this looked a little bit like first 2 possessions, Cavs hit threes, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute. Let's look back to Game 4 last year when they hit 24 threes. And it's like, uh-oh, are we getting one of those games?
Right.
But, they never in first quarter they led by as much as 12. Third quarter, I believe they led by as much as 13. 12 and 13 to the Warriors.
That's not enough.
Yeah, that's not enough. And, even when Curry was, 0 for 9 from 3, you knew that he was going to get at least one more up. And he hit it. And the Warriors just too good. I mean, too many weapons. They could have the best shooter in NBA history shoot 3 for 16. They can have Rodney Hood was fantastic. Best game of his postseason.
Thought he did exactly what you wanted him to do.
It's amazing. The Cavs had Curry go 3 for 16. They had a great game from Rodney Hood, and they lost. I mean, that tells you, they are a flawed team, especially on that defensive end of the floor. Was
there a deflating feeling for you for the Cavaliers as they walked off this court tonight? I mean, Game 4, I know last year, similar situation where, they got to go and win a Game 4 to, prolong the series. And, LeBron, you say to yourself, this might be one of the 2 or 3 greatest players in the history of the game. He's not getting swept. Well, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to hold off this Warriors team when they smell blood and the chum is in the water the way it is right now.
You know what? I'm never going to – you ask me what's going to happen on any particular night, I'm never going to give you a definitive answer. Anything can happen.
Right.
You can ask me Friday, who do you think is going to win? And I say, well, the Warriors are the better team, but who knows? And that was the case last year. And we knew the Warriors wanted that Game 4 because they had a chance to go 16-0 and make history. But that Cavs team was better than this one.
I agree.
That Cavs team had Kyrie Irving. This one does not.
I agree.
And that makes a big difference.
I agree with you 100%. That's game 3. And it's in the books now. People can digest it. But let's talk now about game 4. I mean, where there's such a short turnaround. We're talking about you don't get 2 days to sit back, recover, react, watch the film, adjust, and come back out swinging for what you hope is going to be a long series. This is cutting time potentially for both teams. Game 4, Friday night, could be, and I'm not big on dramatic shoe, but this could be the end of an era for Cleveland, potentially. It could be the last 48 minutes of the second era of LeBron James in a Cleveland Cavaliers uniform.
For the 5th time in this postseason, it could be LeBron's last, or fourth time in this postseason, excuse me. 4th time in this postseason, it could be LeBron's last game with the Cavs.
When I think about the heavy lifting that LeBron has had to do, it's not just evident that he doesn't have the necessary parts to compete at the highest level. When you had Kyrie and Love and some of the vets they had, as you mentioned, on the team last year or the year before when they won a championship, the year before that when they won 2 games against the Warriors, that was a different type of team, a different stock. All the moves Kobe Altman made this year, the team they went to training camp with not being the team they went into the playoffs with. We mentioned Rodney Hood. Was it too much even to ask even for LeBron to get this team to a legitimate opportunity to beat this Warriors team?
I'm just looking at this Game 3 box score. He played 46 minutes and 52 seconds, 47 minutes.
He had a 33-point triple-double.
It's the one thing we've talked about this before with the switching defenses that we have now. It's a lot of one-on-one basketball, and you need guys who can break defenses down playing one-on-one. Kyrie Irving was that other guy for the Cavs. We saw a little bit from Rodney Hood in Game 3, but it wasn't enough. With no other guy that can really break defenses down by himself, LeBron carries such a burden offensively. The Warriors are, if LeBron's outside the paint, the Warriors are staying at home, and so he has to get into the paint not only to get his own shots because his jumper now seems to be an issue, but also to get shots for other guys. Unless he gets into the paint, those other guys aren't getting open.
Yeah.
And like I said, his jumper itself, he was 1 for 6 for 3. That 3 came late that he made. And he did not attempt a mid-range shot at all in Game 3.
Right.
And this is a guy that was shooting 48% from mid-range up until Game 3, and he was the second best mid-range shooter behind Kevin Durant in these playoffs.
I love the way he was attacking the rim though early, because nobody can deal with him. He attacks the rim, but even LeBron can't sustain continued attacks, to the rim like that, and do all the other things you're asking him to do. He's handling the ball like a point guard. You used to have to guard the other team's best player, potentially, for you to have an opportunity to win at this level. You need him to score, facilitate, defend without a number 2, the caliber of Kyrie Irving. And nobody's apologizing for LeBron. I don't want this to sound like me making excuses for him, but really,
at this level, where you're playing, maybe the greatest team we've ever seen,
right?
Greatest collection of talent we've ever seen.
Stop. Wait a minute. Don't go there. Let's.
One of the greatest teams we've ever seen.
I know, because I'm saying that's
in the finals.
That's a podcast for another day. Yeah,
the standard become what you need just becomes that much greater, and you even see it in after timeouts. After timeout plays, the Cavs had a timeout. I forget, it was third or fourth quarter. I was like, let's see what they drew up. But basically, all they're drawing up is let's get a switch for LeBron and let him play one-on-one, whether it be on the perimeter or in the post.
You know what I thought was, this has been the fatal flaw of the teams that have faced the Warriors in these playoffs, at least the last 2. They spent so much, and I covered the Western Conference Finals, so I watched them in all 7 games against Houston. They spent so much time trying to isolate Stephen Curry as some kind of defensive liability shoe that, to me, Houston did it to a fault. Where James Harden and Eric Gordon ended up dribbling a combined 1,000 times in that Game 7. They took 1,000 dribbles almost, trying to exploit a defensive mismatch that in the final analysis really doesn't turn out to work in your favor. And now Cleveland, LeBron tonight, I counted 3 or 4 possessions where they had to screen multiple times to get Steph on. Like George Hill is running Steph to him,
and that takes up clock.
That takes up time. You don't get in an offensive flow. So that means if he's got to make a pass to somebody else to get them a shot, they're getting it with less time to work with.
And if the Warriors rotate to that first guy, you're running out of time. And we saw that a lot in Game 1 too. Like even that was obviously the Cavs' best game in this series, but the Curry switch didn't really work out for the Cavs as much as maybe you thought it did in hindsight. It did late in the fourth, but there's a lot of that action where they try for the switch once. Durant sort of fights through the screen to get back in front, and they got to do it again. And then all of a sudden, now you're running into a late clock situation, and that's tough to operate, through consistently.
And I understand the theory. Don't get me wrong. I understand exactly why you would do it. But how many times a 65-win team that honestly didn't have to have Chris Paul to play with in the deciding games, so that has to be factored as well. But it didn't work for the Rockets. So why would Cleveland, a lesser team in every measure, defensively, don't shoot it as well as the Rockets, why would Cleveland think that strategy would work for them?
Well, what's the other strategy? The Warriors are...
They're a juggernaut. Let's not...
Yes, when they're at their best, they are the best team. They're the best offensive team in the league. And when they're dialed in, they are the best defensive team in the league. Right. I mean, they are that good. They just have... Like where Curry is the one weak spot, and he's not the weakest point guard defender in the league.
Yeah.
by
I don't know why people
shot.
keep treating him like that.
But it's because they have great defenders everywhere else.
Right.
Basically, I think the only weak spot that the Cavs can really attack, other than Curry, is JaVale McGee when he's out there, because his ability to sort of contain in space is not that great. But the Warriors aren't going to play JaVale all that much, especially now that Iguodala is back and the Cavs can play more minutes with Draymond Green at center.
Right. Sure. We're going to have plenty of time to talk about the future here in Cleveland. What happens after July 1st? Free agency. But if you're looking at this now and you're LeBron James and you're 33 and you're 15 seasons in and you just played 82 games and they flipped this roster twice. And from the way I understand it, you were not consulted from the jump either time. You weren't. When they traded Kyrie, you were not brought in and informed of how this was going down. You were just told, hey, we're trading Kyrie, period. And if you're LeBron James and you've committed what you've committed to Northeast Ohio, to the Cleveland Cavaliers as an organization, and now they want you to help continue this, how do you approach that conversation now? And we're going to finish this instant analysis of Game 3 up on that.
LeBron speculation.
Well, I mean, we'd be remiss if we didn't. It's hovering over this whole thing.
I've heard the Cleveland writers put it this way, and I can't disagree. If he's making a basketball decision this summer, he's not staying in Cleveland. If it's more about family and where his kids are going to school, then Cleveland has a shot.
Business decision for LeBron James could come sooner than anybody expected. Game 4 on tap Friday here at Quicken Loans Arena could be the last game of an era for LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Could be the final 48 minutes of not only his season but his tenure in a Cleveland Cavaliers uniform. And it's sad to me that that's going to be, for 24 hours, that's going to be on everybody's mind. when we probably should be celebrating the fact that, as you mentioned, this is one of the best, most beautifully assembled basketball teams that we've seen in the history of this game, in the Golden State Warriors. And they got a potential sweep on their hands if they can finish this thing off Friday night.
And most importantly, we only have 2 more days, perhaps, to eat at the Pho Tang Cafe.
That's a very good point. This probably pushes up our deadline. We need to get there tomorrow for sure.
Meet us,
just in case.
Everybody listening, meet us at the Pho Tang Cafe.
Maybe do a little extra podcasting when we get over there. It's gonna be interesting. Game 4 on tap. Could be the end of the NBA postseason for the Golden State Warriors, Cleveland Cavaliers. Sekou Smith, John Schumann here at Quicken Loans Arena. We appreciate you. We'll talk to you next time on the Hang Time Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Hang Time Podcast, and be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts for a new episode every Thursday this season. And as always, say Kuna Matata.